Hello, everyone. This is Whitney Whale from Starhearth Astrology, and today I'm here for your weekly forecast for the week of November 27th until December 3rd of 2023. We are getting down to the end of this. And whoa, this week starts off with a full moon in Gemini, with the sun conjunct Mars in Sagittarius. And this one was a doozy. It was exact at 1:15 in the morning Pacific time on November 27th. And the worst combined night of sleep of my children, which is funny to me because Gemini is my fifth house of children. So a full moon, it's like, okay, we are seeing a lot of that. So if you, like me, were awake all night, right, you might be feeling the effects of this Mercury, your mind and your words, in an exact square to Neptune and Pisces, kind of confusing and muddying the waters and the clarity, also the understanding between people. And what's also interesting about this Mercury square Neptune is that on Saturday, November 25th, Mercury entered the shadow of its upcoming retrograde. So Mercury entered 22 degrees of Sag. Its retrograde is going to be from 8.5 degrees of Capricorn to 22 degrees of Sag. So if you have any personal placements there, or really in from 0 to 8 degrees of the cardinal signs, or 22 to 30 degrees of the mutable signs, right? There's going to be hard aspects to those. And so as we enter the pre-shadow of Mercury's retrograde, we want to be looking at just keeping tabs on what is coming up around communication, around patterns of thinking, and how that is changing our experience of the world, because that is going to be the stuff that we're wrestling with. And so when we've got a full moon in Gemini, the sign ruled the ruler of Gemini, Mercury. So the ruler of this lunation is in a square to Neptune. So, right, as frenetic and intellectual and verbal as we want to be, it's getting lost, it's getting drowned in the waters here, or it's getting sublimated, right? And that's an interesting kind of tension for Gemini, because Gemini can kind of get lost in all of the details and really want to parse everything out, whereas Pisces is going to want to feel it. So there's this kind of confusion, right? We already have Mercury in its detriment, square Neptune, right? It's a confusing one. And so I think that this happening right as Mercury enters the shadow of its retrograde means the kind of miscommunications, the stuff that we really want to say, but we can't quite get the message across in a way that someone else can hear, or we can't quite hear the message that someone else is trying to offer us. I think this is really the content of this upcoming retrograde. I think we'll see more the effects of this breaking down once we head into very practical Capricorn. But I think we're kind of feeling that tension, and that this full moon really puts that into relief. We do not have the tools that we need in our minds and in our voices, in our communication. There's something going on that we're missing with Neptune. There's something that we're longing for, a sense of connection that we're longing for, and we're just not quite bringing it all together. And by the time we get to the end of this retrograde, with Mercury stationing direct back at 22 degrees of Sag, it's going to station direct in a T square with this Neptune, and the moon will be in Virgo. So it will come back to this aspect at the crux of, right, what we need to be. And Mercury is going to station direct on New Year's Day. So that's a very much like, okay, this last part of the year, we're wrapping it up. We're letting go of stuff, but we've got this kind of this mental game, this communication game that's really brought up by this Gemini full moon. So that's kind of how we start the week. And it's kind of at this fever pitch of activity and also just exhaustion, right? So if you're feeling like I cannot put more into the stuff that I'm trying to do, that is very much the feeling of a full moon, because the energy of the moon starts contracting and we go back in, right? Where can we cut things out? Where have we put enough inertia into something that it's already moving? How can we return back to a restoration for ourselves? Now, we quickly head in on Tuesday to the sorry, not quickly on Tuesday, by the end of the day on Tuesday, by the evening, we've got the moon heading into Cancer. So a lot more kind of emotional release happening there. On Wednesday morning, we have the exact conjunction of, where'd she go? Of Venus and the South Node. And so that can be, even though we've got Venus in Libra, the South Node kind of disappears things, right? That feeling of close connection and of balancing and of witnessing and of receiving each other and being close in relationships might be a little bit more theoretical. It might be something that we need to believe in more than we can actually feel, because Venus is kind of getting minimized by the South Node, even though she's powerful. And so it's kind of, right, it's kind of this moment of really needing to, if we're going through it, give our partners, give ourselves, give our people the benefit of the doubt, because Venus is struggling to be helpful. And so it will be helpful for us to take on a little bit more of like a spiritual bent to this. And just release and try and just give a lot of grace to everybody, especially because the moon is in Cancer. Emotions are going to be high. Okay, we finally get some fading light by Thursday evening. So by then we move from the full moon phase into the waning crescent. Hopefully the pressure eases off. On Friday, first thing in the morning, Mercury enters Capricorn. And this is really important because at 0 degrees of Capricorn is going to be the degree of the cazimi in the heart of the Mercury retrograde. So that is when Mercury is retrograde and conjoins the sun, and there's the purification process of Mercury in the heart of the sun, kind of clarifying what its message is, where, it's that moment of insight of like, aha, I've received the thing that I got wrong. Now I know what I'm doing wrong, or I know where to find the solution. We still have the rest of the retrograde and the post shadow to kind of iron that out and develop the method for that. But it's like, when you're writing an essay and you kind of have to write what one of my college professors called the 0th draft. It's the draft where you just have to write until you figure out what you're trying to say. And in that, you're not so focused, you haven't quite developed it. You're like writing to find yourself. And so that moment of the cazimi is kind of the moment where you like get the idea and the defining thing, and then the rest of the retrograde and the post shadow of the retrograde is like writing the thing that you actually figured out that you need to write. So this is where, we might get some hints of that. The 0 degree of Capricorn is really important. And so we spend the next couple of days with Mercury on that degree. And so let's be reflective. Let's pay attention. The moon goes into Leo. So we're drying off from Cancer. And I think that shifts our emotional world from kind of feeling like it's in a bog and kind of going into like, wait, I am the agent of change in my own life. I am the actor. What do I need to do to make this happen? On Saturday, Mercury is going to sextile Capricorn, but Mercury is going to sextile Saturn. Freudian slip there. Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn. So Mercury is kind of checking in with the district manager to be like, okay, what are we working on? At 0 degrees of Pisces. How do we integrate the emotional truths of this into finding concrete, practical solutions, right? What are we looking for? What are we wrestling with? And I think that Mercury, Saturn kind of harmonious contacts like this are great for planning, for goal setting. I think if you can have a few moments of figuring out what is important for you heading into the holidays and Christmas and the end of the year, right? Not as like these concrete goals, because this is the Mercury retrograde and they're not going to turn out that way, but what are your values? Right? What is a guiding light that you can put your intention behind, that will help you come back into alignment with yourself when you get pulled off course by the Mercury retrograde. So that is, I want to have a calm holiday season, right? And so then if that's your intention, it's going to help you say no. It's going to help you not plan too ambitious things, right? If your intention is, right, I want to protect my time, right? Just little things to keep you in alignment. And you can kind of check in to your Capricorn and Sagittarius houses for an examination of that. So for me, as an Aquarius rising, I have a Capricorn house is my 12th and Sagittarius is my 11th. So interesting, right? The 12th, the place of isolation, and the 11th, the place of friendship, right? So, I might have a goal around balancing, right? The isolation of winter and how can I connect with my community and my friends to kind of do that, and what's the proper balance. And so I'll go into the retrograde with a question around that value. How can I feel connected but not overdo it, right? And then I get to have a sense of curiosity and playfulness about the lessons that come through the retrograde. On Sunday, the 3rd, we head into, what is definitely a dicey aspect. And that is Venus square Pluto. This is where relationships have crises. This is where people try and force things and it blows up in their faces. This is where you think everything was going fine, and then you hit a tripwire and all of the stuff that has been swept under the rug kind of blows up, right? And this, this square from Venus and Libra, where she's very powerful, she's in the overcoming position, she wants to make it work, but she's hitting Pluto in Capricorn with the weight of how things are, right? I don't think that this looks good financially. I don't think that this looks good relationally. I think this is a pretty terrifying aspect, but you got to pay attention to what you're sensitive to. So if you're in a Venus perfection year, this is going to affect you more. Full disclosure, I'm probably more sensitive to these because I have a Venus Pluto square in my natal chart. So that's one of those things that I've bookmarked. When these things happen, know that they're happening so that they are part of the context in your own mind when the actions of your life are making things feel like relationships are really life and death. Because that's Pluto triggers us. And when we've got Pluto in hard aspect to Venus, we're feeling triggered in our relationships. And this is a high stakes time of year for that to happen to people. So practice self-care, knowing that that is there. Don't push it. Give yourself space. Take it all with a grain of salt. Right? Stay away from the things that you know are going to make you feel more extreme. So staying up too late, too much caffeine, too many other substances, right? Understanding that you want to set yourself up for success for being able to handle problems that may arise in correlation with this Venus square Pluto aspect. Okay, that's what I've got for you. A little bit of a tricky week heading into December. We're in the final month of the year. We've got some interesting things going on for this next couple weeks of Sagittarius season. Again, if you would like my full year ahead forecast, a month early, I'll release it for everybody on January 1st, but I'm going to release it for paid subscribers on my Substack on November 30th, so you can sign up for that and get it then. Okay, thanks everyone. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I will be back next week.